In this lesson, we're going to take a look at some advanced features in Intellij that really allow us to be more productive. So we'll look at some things that kind of teach us new things, a way to enter kind of different modes in Intellij to kind of view your code differently, and really look at a bunch of keyboard shortcuts that I love that really help me get around the IDE. If you're not using shortcuts, you're missing out. Now, these might be a little bit different if you're on Windows. It's okay. There's ways to find them. They do the same kind of thing in the IDE. There just may be a little slight difference in the actual shortcut to get there. So we're going to open up a project that I'm working on right now. This is a Angular and Spring Boot project. A lot of Java code in here, a lot of web assets, etc. So one thing I don't have coming up right away is under Help, Tip of the Day. I would suggest looking at these tips and just kind of studying them. If you pick up one every day, you're going to learn a lot about the Intellij IDE, and learn some different things that are going to help you be more productive. So don't ignore these. Use these. They're really great. So I'm going to close mine out. And the first thing I want to talk about is a plugin that I'm using called Presentation Assistant. So anytime I type like a keyboard shortcut, you'll see down here at the bottom, it shows me what that shortcut is, the name of the feature that we're using, and the shortcut key on how we got there. So Presentation Assistant is a cool little plugin that you can use in Intellij anytime you're kind of showing stuff off. So we talked about that. We talked about the tooltips that come up. I want to talk quickly about a couple different modes. So I'm just going to open up a file here. And we have a couple different modes here. If we go to View and you're given a presentation, we can enter presentation mode, and it really just gets you right down into the code. So if we just want to start talking about this code, we can do so. You got to come back up here, exit out of here, go to View, and exit presentation mode. Distraction mode's a little different. Let's say we had this open down here, we had our terminal open down here, we had Gradle open down here. One way we can get into distraction mode is we can view and enter distraction free mode. So we don't have anything else going on but our code, and we can just work right there with our code. So I'm going to go ahead and exit distraction free code. And we can also use a keyboard shortcut to make this happen. I believe this is Shift Command F12. No, Shift Command F12. Wrong one. Let me see here. What was that one? Shift Command F12. Okay, I was just doing the wrong thing. So Shift Command F12. That will go ahead and get us, you see hide all windows down there. If we click it again, it'll get us right back to where we were. So that's kind of how you can kind of clear your windows up, and we can look at like presentation mode and distraction free mode. Another thing we can do, if we have a folder selected, we can hit Command N for new. So I want to create a new. If I didn't know what I wanted to create, I could start typing and it's going to give us that option. So I'm going to create a new Java class and we'll call this employee. And we talked about this earlier, but if we were typing out some properties here, so private string first, private string last. And if we wanted to generate this, we know we could go to the menu or right click, but if we just wanted to hit Control and N, we can generate right inside of the class itself. So we could then go ahead and generate our getter and setter, and there we go. So that's that. Now let's start talking about how we can navigate across files within the IDE. So let's talk about a couple different things. I'm going to hit Command O. And as you can see, this is navigate to a class. So we're looking for a type here. And the way that we can do this is we can start to type out a particular class name or type, and we can get to it. So I know that there's a domain user details service in this particular project, and I can just start typing that out and then hit enter. Makes it a lot easier than having to go find it in my project. I hardly ever go over here and try to find classes when I'm actually working on stuff. It's much easier to do something like that. Now what we can also do here is we can do a shortcut. So we know that domain details service is the name, but we can use camel case and it'll find it. So domain details service is the DDS. So that's each first kind of letter, each of those, and that's how it found it. So we can do that the same and get back to that class. Now, if I know there's a particular function that I want to get to, so in this case, we have a function here called user from database on 51. I can hit Command O, I can hit DDS, I'm going to say DDS, and I'm going to say :51, and that jumps us right down to that particular line. So that's pretty cool. So that was all about working with types. What if we wanted to work with files? So I'm just going to show you something here. So we have this banner.txt. If I were to open Command O, banner.txt doesn't show up because it's not a class or a type there. So that's not going to work. But we can work with files the same way that we kind of worked with our objects. So the way that we're going to do that is Shift Command O, and that's going to navigate to files. So now we can start to type out banner, and there's our banner.txt. We can hit enter and go right to it. Also with files, if we wanted to look for folders, I know there's some config folders in here. I can start to type config, and it'll show me all the different config folders here. Now that was working with files. We can also work with symbols. And the way that this works is, so here's a symbol name. So if I know that I have a method somewhere called getUserLogin, I think it is. So if I start to type getUserLogin, so actually it was getCurrentUserLogin. So it's actually looking through our classes and looking for a symbol with that name. So now I can hit that and it takes us right to that class and right to that method. So that's pretty cool as well. So with that, we also finally have something called search everywhere, and that's if we hit double shift. So we tap shift 2 times and we get a search everywhere. So now when I start to type, it's typing across all those different things we were talking about. So here's recent files, classes, files, and symbols. If I wanted to, I can hit tab and it'll start to take me through those different sections. So again, search everywhere is kind of a global search for everything. I use this a lot, but I also use just when I want to look for a type, it just makes it easier sometimes. But if you're not quite sure what you're looking for, this is a great place to go, and that's search everywhere. Okay, something else I also do here is if I go up here and I click on this, we can do auto scroll from source. So what this is, open a file, let's say in the domain packet. What do we have? Let's say RFB event. Let's say I'm way down here and then I want to find that file, which is RFB event. So I click to it, and if you noticed on the left side, it auto scrolled to the package of where that file is. If I didn't have that selected, I might not understand where that class exists. So this is an easy way to jump right to it. So let's go back, and I'm going to grab our user details, our domain DDS. So let's jump into here, and let's just talk quickly about navigating around some code. So one thing that I might want to do is I might want to fix some code. So let's say that this was way out here, this was way out here. So the first thing that we can do is we can go ahead and hit Shift up and, oops, nope, I want Control up. Nope. Oops. All right, so extended selection there you see is Alt up. It starts to select that, then it'll extend to the entire method name, then it'll extend to the entire class. So extended selection kind of allows you to select a certain group of text. So now that I have that selected, I notice that my indentation is really off, and I want to kind of clean that up really quick. So if I hit Control-Alt-I, that will auto indent those lines and clean that up for us. So now in IntelliJ, we don't Control X to kind of cut lines and paste them in anywhere else. If we wanted to move this line down, we can do so by simply holding the Command key or the Control key. Oh, sorry. All right, sorry about that. That was the Shift Alt key. So as we hit the Shift Alt key and hit the down arrow, we can move this line of code around without having to use our mouse, cut it, and paste it somewhere else. So that's really cool. We can also duplicate a line. So if we wanted a new line that looked just like this, so we can maybe change something, we can hit Command D and it'll duplicate that line. Last thing we'll look at is if I wanted to use multiple cursors, we have this multiple selection feature, and I wanted to select everything in this document that is user repository. Is that user repository? Yeah. We can hit Control G and it'll start to select more of those anywhere it can find one, and then we could change it if we wanted to. Now, again, you wouldn't want to use this just for refactoring. There's better ways to refactor your code, but multiple selections will allow you to kind of select everything that you need to in one particular file. So I think that's it. There's a bunch of things that we could talk about on this subject. There's so much that IntelliJ does. And that's why I said, try to look at those tooltips when they pop up every day right before you start coding, and just pick up one new thing every day. Just learn how to do that one little tooltip real quickly, and you'll become a whiz at IntelliJ in no time. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And with that, let's go ahead and move on.